start to talk about my paper, I want to say something. The parents of both my grandmother and grandfather were the only child in their family that managed to survive and escape the genocide. So it's not for me just a historical fact, it's a history of my family. And I will represent my paper, Turkish government's current steps toward the denial of Armenian genocide. In the last years, Turkish officials and scientists talking about Armenian genocide issue often use the term shared pain in their speeches, which is one of the most important weapons that official Ankara uses in the frame of the denial of Armenian genocide. The term shared pain in Turkish ortak acı is the newest, modern, and efficient thesis of the Turkish denial of Armenian genocide. This thesis is primarily directed to the international community. In the scope of shared pain thesis, Turkey doesn't deny what happened with Armenians in the first quarter of 20th century, as in the previous decades. Nowadays, Turkey claims that Armenians had a tragedy, big pain, like Turks and other Muslims of Ottoman Empire in the beginning of the 20th century. And they try to put the blame of those tragedies either on Young Turks government or the World War I. At the same time, Turkish side tries to avoid naming those events genocide and presents its denial in a new, well-packed way. And not only international media, but also representatives of different countries and international organizations swallow the bite. The Turkish side has been designing this thesis for a long time and published a lot of articles and books on shared pain. Even Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and other senior officials, Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu, ex-President Abdullah Gül, the Turkish Grand National Assembly Speaker Cemil Çiçek, as well as senior Turkish diplomats, academicians, politicians, use the thesis of shared pain in their speeches. Now, we would like to highlight some key points of shared pain thesis, to which I will revive with known and simple facts. According to this thesis of shared pain, during the World War I, painful events happened from which not only Armenians living in Ottoman Empire, but Turks and other Muslims suffered as well. Thus, Turkish officials try to equalize the loss of Armenians and Turks, though this has no edges of comparison, both from the point of morality and of its sizes. Of course, Turks also suffered from the World War I, but they hadn't been subjected to intended mass killings, and after all, were not deprived of their motherland. Another important message of this thesis is that everything that happened to Armenians in 1950 are the results of war and should be considered among the ensuing horrors of the World War I. Thus, Turkey tries to relieve its own guilt. By putting forward this thesis, the Turkish side calls to set fair memory. But it is very difficult to find justice in this thesis, as it is difficult to and hard to search for sincerity within the Turkish officials. It is immoral to compare the intended mass killings of 500,000 Armenians with the losses of the war. And the deprivation of the motherland isn't equal to Turkish losses. Armenians not only had lost their lives, property, but also had undergone physical destruction in their historic motherland. A separate issue is the forced marriages and Islamization of thousands of Armenian women and children. As one cannot put parity between the victim and victimizer, it is impossible to compare the mass killings of peaceful Armenians and the killings of Turks in the war. In the same way, the victims of Holocaust are not compared with the military losses of Nazi Germany. Talking about the war situation, we should also remember that on March 18, in 1915, when the Battle of Gallipoli started, thousands of Armenian soldiers and officers were serving in Ottoman army, which is confirmed by Turkish source. The most famous is the story of Sarkis Torosyan, the Ottoman army captain, who was heroically fighting in Gallipoli. At the same time, his family was deported to Deir el-Zor desert and massacred. Such stories are not unique. Thus, it can be stated that during the genocide, thousands of Armenians were fighting for Ottoman army and lost their lives during the Battle of Gallipoli, and not only in Gallipoli. There is also another important point. The Armenian genocide was not over even after World War I. After the World War I, during the Turkish nationalist or Kemalist movement, thousands of Armenians were murdered in Western Armenia, as well as in Kilikia, in regions of Asia Minor populated by Armenians, in Eastern Armenia, and in the territory of the First Republic of Armenia too. The Armenian genocide was not over after 1950, but continued in the subsequent 7 to 8 years in different frequency and intensity. This is not a fair memory, not a shared pain. The historical tragedy has one moral and legal name, genocide. And the using of other terms is just an attempt to avoid the responsibility and distort history. In the era of the ruling Justice and Development Party, with Recep Tayyip Erdogan in its head, Turkish officials talk about shared pain or fair memory in their speeches. In addition, books are published on this subject, campaigns are carried out. And the third countries fight this thesis of a shared pain as a step forward on the overview of Turkish denial. But one should remember that this thesis of shared pain is just a more modern and improved form of the denial, which, in a deep sense, does not change official Turkey's approach to the tragedy of the Armenians. It is expected that during the whole year of 2015, Turkey's side will try to put forward the thesis of shared pain, to speak about fair memory, to remember about historians' committees, and made reference to the Erdogan's message of remembrance on April 24 in 2014. The experience has shown that such tricks make impact on audience of the third countries, and Turkey will continue these steps in the future. Thus, summing up Turkish modern policy of denying the genocide issue, it should be mentioned that unlike previous years, Turkey does not completely deny the Armenian massacres, but yet they didn't name it genocide. Turkey is making some moves which makes an impression that Turkey is doing a step forward in the recognition of genocide. But at the same time, in the scientific, research, diplomatic ways, Turkey continues the steps toward the denial of Armenian genocide. Of course, the change from completely denying to relatively free discussions leaves some hope that future generations in Turkey will not avoid from the responsibility for the actions of their ancestors. Many people may ask why modern Turkey and Turks should be responsible for the crimes of their ancestors. The answer is clear and simple. Denial of the genocide is a continuation of the genocide. If one denies genocide, one is participating in the process of genocide. Thank you.